Welcome to Made in the Low Country. My name is Stephanie and I'm so glad you're here. Today I want to share with you my recipe for everyday white bread. It's a sweetened condensed milk bread, so it's absolutely delicious, it's soft, and again I make it in my bread machine. I let my bread machine do the kneading and the first rise, and then I take it out and I put it in a bread pan and then bake it in the oven. But I'm just going to share the quick process with you. I found this recipe online several years ago and I changed it a good bit, and I combined a couple of different recipes, and then I adapted it to go into my bread machine. When I first started making it, I did it by hand, but once I got my bread machine, I try to adapt everything to go in there that I possibly can, other than my sourdough, but this one is a great one for the bread machine. I'm going to double this recipe. I'll put the recipe below for a single and a double loaf. You can actually let it bake in your bread machine if you do a single loaf, but I'm going to double it, and I'm going to give a loaf to my son and daughter-in-law. So I'm going to be using these Pullman loaf pans to bake mine in my oven. So I'll take them out. I'll just run a dough process on my bread machine, and I'll take them out, and then I'll put them in the pans and let them do the second rise, and then I'll bake them in the oven. For this doubled recipe, you're going to need 330 grams of lukewarm milk. You'll also need 120 grams of sweetened condensed milk. Mine is cold, so I'm adding it to my milk. And these milks need to be lukewarm, so I'm going to pop them in my microwave and warm them up. You'll want to pour your warmed milks into your bread pan. Add 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter. I've just softened it in the microwave. Next, you'll add 550 grams of bread flour. Don't forget to tare your scale to cancel out the weights. Next, you'll need 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of sugar, and I make a little well for my yeast, and 1 tablespoon of dry instant yeast. Pop your bread pan into your machine, and then I'm going to run a dough cycle. So all I have to do on my machine is just scroll down to dough and hit start. Once that's complete, we'll come back and shape our loaves and put them in the bread pans. The loaf pans need to be greased very well. I just like to use a little bit of butter. And if you're using a Pullman pan, don't forget to do the lid as well, in case it rises enough to touch the lid. My bread machine just turned off, and this is what we have. Remember, this is a doubled recipe, so if you want it to bake in your machine, you'd want to go with half of this, because once this goes through the next rise, it would be way too big for this pan. I just make a rectangle and then eyeball it. Alright, so all we're going to do is flatten it a little bit. Sometimes I'll even pull my pan to get the width that I need. And then I'll roll it up. It's very similar to the French bread from the last video. Pinch the bottom. And the ends. And add the lid. I'm going to repeat for the other half. So I'm going to let these sit here on my counter and rise until they've doubled in size. These have been rising for about an hour and 45 minutes because it's kind of cool in here today. So I'll let you see how it looks. Right. And the last step before baking, I preheated my oven to 365 degrees Fahrenheit about 15 minutes ago. So the last thing we'll want to do before baking is just brush the top with a little bit of milk. I'm gonna bake these with the lids on. Again, if you don't have a Pullman pan, you just have a regular loaf pan, that works great as well. So I'm gonna go bake these for 25 minutes on 365 degrees Fahrenheit again, and I'll be back to show you what we have. They have baked for 25 minutes and I just pulled them out the oven. So let's see what we have. Nice. So they're nice and browned on top, probably because we added the milk. I'm going to just turn them out onto my cooling rack to cool for a while. It's kind of suctioned in there. Flip it back over. Now the other one. And soft. It's really hot right now, but I'll come back in a little bit when it's cooled some and cut it so you can see the inside. It's only been cooling for about 15 minutes, but honestly it smells so good in here, and I only really like bread when it's fresh out of the oven, so I'm gonna go do a no-no and go ahead and cut it. I also love the end pieces, so I'm gonna cut me a little thin slice off the end. This bread is so soft and it cuts just very easily. All right, so this is the inside, nice and soft. The bread has a very open texture. It's very tender and fluffy, and it absolutely tastes delicious. Hope you try this bread. It's really worth the little bit of time it takes to make it, and let me know how you like it in the comments below. Thanks, and see you next time.